Eliza Hartwell's knees hit the frozen mud outside Thornton's general store, her arms wrapped around three shivering children who hadn't eaten in 2 days. The shopkeeper kicked snow at them. The banker's wife laughed. And the whole town of Bitter Creek, Wyoming, watched a widow beg for table scraps while her babies cried. Then a stranger's shadow fell across them, and a rough voice said words that would change everything. "Get up, ma'am. You're done begging." Stay with me until the end. Subscribe and comment which city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Wyoming Territory. December 1882. The snow fell like judgment. Eliza couldn't feel her fingers anymore. Couldn't feel her feet. Could barely feel the weight of Grace pressed against her chest, 4 years old, and light as a ghost, because there hadn't been food. Not yesterday. Not the day before. Not for longer than Eliza wanted to count. "Mama." Benjamin's voice cracked. 12 years old and trying so hard to be brave. "Mama, maybe we should go home." Home. That word didn't mean anything anymore. Home was a cold cabin with empty shelves and a fireplace they couldn't afford to feed. Home was where Samuel had died 5 months ago. His neck broken when that damned horse threw him, leaving Eliza alone with 3 children and debts she couldn't pronounce, let alone pay. "Just a little longer, Ben." Her voice came out wrong, thin, desperate. She hated the sound of it. They'd been standing outside Thornton's general store for an hour. Eliza had watched through the window as Margaret Thornton wrapped packages for paying customers. Had watched her laugh with the banker's wife, Mrs. Blackwood. Had watched the warm light and the full shelves, and felt something inside her chest crack a little more with each passing minute. "I'm cold." Clara pressed against Eliza's side. 9 years old with Samuel's dark eyes watching everything, understanding too much. "Mama, I'm so cold." "I know, sweetheart, I know." The door opened. Eliza straightened, trying to look dignified, trying to look like something other than what she was. A widow, a beggar. A woman who'd run out of options and pride both. "Mrs. Hartwell." Margaret Thornton stood in the doorway, arms crossed. A large woman with a small heart. "I told you yesterday, no more credit. Your husband's debts are settled, but you've got nothing left. Nothing." "Please." The word burned coming out. "I'm not asking for much, just some flour, maybe beans. I'll work it off. I can clean, I can mend, I can—" "You can leave." Margaret's voice carried across the street. People stopped, turned, watched. "I'm not running a charity for women who can't manage their own affairs." Heat flooded Eliza's face despite the cold. "My children haven't eaten in—" "Not my problem." Margaret started to close the door. Benjamin stepped forward. "Please, ma'am. My sisters are hungry. We'll do anything. I can chop wood. I can haul water. Just please." "Boy, you step back." Margaret's face hardened. "Your mama should have thought about feeding you before she spent every cent your daddy left on God knows what." Lies. All lies. Samuel had left them nothing but debt. The horse, the cabin, the land. All of it mortgaged to Victor Blackwood's bank at rates that made Eliza's head spin. She'd sold Samuel's saddle, his guns, her mother's silver, everything. And still it wasn't enough. There was no money. Eliza's voice shook. "Samuel died owing more than we had. I'm trying. I'm doing everything I can, but nothing." Mrs. Blackwood appeared beside Margaret, wealthy, well-fed, draped in furs that cost more than Eliza's cabin. "Honestly, Mrs. Hartwell, some people simply aren't meant to survive out here. Perhaps you should consider going back east, finding family, leaving this territory to those of us who can actually manage." Clara made a small sound, not quite a sob. Grace whimpered against Eliza's chest. "I don't have family back east," Eliza heard herself say. "This is our home. Samuel built—" "Samuel is dead." Margaret said it flat, cold, like stating the weather. "And you're dragging these poor children down with you out of sheer stubbornness." Benjamin's hands clenched into fists. "Don't talk about my pa like—" "Benjamin!" Eliza grabbed his arm. "Don't!" But the boy pulled away, tears cutting tracks through the dirt on his face. "They're lying, Mama. You didn't spend anything. You sold everything. Everything. And they know it. The whole town knows Pa died with nothing, and they're just being—" A rock hit the snow at Benjamin's feet. Eliza's head snapped up. A boy, maybe 14, standing across the street with a handful of stones and a mean smile. The blacksmith's son. She couldn't remember his name. "Beggar boy," he called. "You and your beggar mama should leave town. Nobody wants you here." Another rock. This one hit closer. "Stop it." Eliza moved in front of her children. "He's just a child. We're all just pathetic." Someone else. A woman Eliza didn't recognize. "Absolutely pathetic. Making those poor children stand in the cold while you beg. Have you no shame?" Laughter. More people gathering. Eliza felt the weight of their eyes, their judgment, their complete absence of mercy. "Please." Her voice broke. "Please, someone. Anything. I can work. I can pay it back. I just need—" Grace started crying. Not loud. Just a thin, exhausted sound that made Eliza want to die. And then her knees gave out. She didn't mean to fall. Didn't choose it. Her body simply stopped cooperating, and suddenly she was on the ground, frozen mud soaking through her skirt. Grace still clutched against her chest, and Benjamin and Clara grabbing at her arms, trying to pull her up. "Mama, please." Benjamin's voice cracked completely. "Mama, get up. Please get up." Someone laughed. Eliza couldn't see who. Couldn't see anything except the gray sky and her children's frightened faces and the certain knowledge that this was it. This was how they died. Not quick, not merciful, slow, cold, starving in the street while the town watched. "Pathetic," Mrs. Blackwood said again. And then a shadow fell across them. Eliza looked up. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a long coat and a hat pulled low. She couldn't see his face clearly, just the hard line of his jaw, and something in his eyes that made her breath catch. He didn't speak, just stood there, a wall between her family and the watching crowd. "Move along, stranger." Margaret's voice lost some of its confidence. "This doesn't concern you." The man turned his head slowly. "Ma'am, I'm going to give you a chance to rethink that statement." His voice was rough. Western. The kind of voice that didn't make threats it couldn't back up. "I said move along." Margaret's face reddened. "This is my store, my property. If I want this woman and her brats removed, you'll do it yourself." The stranger's hand moved to his hip, not drawing, just resting, but the message was clear. "Because if you're asking me to move, ma'am, we're going to have a problem." Silence. Complete. Absolute. Eliza could hear her own heartbeat, could hear Grace's quiet sobs, could hear Benjamin's sharp intake of breath. The stranger took a step forward. "Anyone else want to comment? Anyone else want to share their thoughts on this woman and her children?" No one spoke. "That's what I thought." He turned, and for the first time Eliza saw his face clearly. Maybe 30, maybe older. Hard years lived in hard country. But his eyes were soft, wasn't the right word. Careful, like he was trying very hard not to scare her children more than they already were. "Ma'am." He crouched down, putting himself at her level. "Can you stand?" Eliza tried. Failed. Tried again. Benjamin and Clara pushed from behind, and the stranger caught her arm, gentle, so gentle, she almost cried from that alone, and helped her up. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, but you shouldn't have—" How long since they ate? He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at Grace, at Clara, at Benjamin, who stood trembling with cold and rage, and something that might have been hope. 2 days. The admission hurt. Maybe 3, I lose track. The stranger's jaw tightened. Then he turned to Margaret Thornton, who stood frozen in her doorway. Ma'am, I need supplies. Flour, salt, beans, bacon, coffee. And I need them now. We're closed. Ma'am? The stranger's voice dropped. That wasn't a request. Margaret hesitated, then disappeared inside. Eliza tried to speak, tried to say anything that would make sense of what was happening. I can't pay you. I don't have money. I don't have anything. Didn't ask you to pay. He was watching the crowd now. They were dispersing, quickly. Asked you to stand up and keep these children warm until the supplies come out. But why? The question burst out. You don't know us. Don't know me. Why would you? Because it's right. Simple as that. He said it like there was no other option, no other choice. Because watching a woman and her children starve while people laugh is about the worst thing I can imagine. And because I've been hungry before, ma'am, I know what it looks like. Margaret returned with packages, dropped them at the stranger's feet without meeting his eyes. He gathered them up, turned back to Eliza. Where's your cabin? 2 miles east. But sir, I can't accept. You can and you will. He handed the packages to Benjamin. Boy, can you carry these? Benjamin nodded, struck dumb. Good. You lead the way. I'll follow with my horse. Sir, please. Eliza was shaking, from cold, from hunger, from shock. At least tell me your name. Tell me who... Nate. He tipped his hat. Nathaniel Cross. But Nate's fine. Mr. Cross. Her voice steadied. I'm Eliza. Eliza Hartwell. These are my children. Benjamin, Clara, Grace. Ma'am. He nodded to each of them. Then his eyes returned to her. Let's get you home before your children freeze. The walk took forever. 2 miles felt like 20. Grace fell asleep against Eliza's shoulder. Clara stumbled twice. Benjamin carried the packages like they were made of gold, his face set in that too-adult expression that made Eliza's heart hurt. Nate walked beside them. Didn't speak much, just kept pace leading a rangy paint horse that looked as worn as its rider. When the cabin came into view, small, shabby, missing shingles on the roof, Eliza felt shame wash over her again. It's not much. It's home. Nate said it simple. That's enough. Inside, the temperature wasn't much better than outside. The fire had died hours ago. No wood left to feed it. Nate took one look around and nodded like he'd expected exactly this. You got an axe. Behind the cabin. But Mr. Cross... Nate. Nate. She tried the name. It felt strange. Familiar and foreign at once. You've done enough. More than enough. You don't need to. Ma'am, when's the last time you ate? Eliza opened her mouth. Closed it. Couldn't remember. That's what I thought. He moved to the door. Benjamin, you come help me. Clara, you help your mama get that stove going. Grace, you sit right there and don't move. And just like that, her children had orders. Structure. Something to do, besides be scared and hungry. Benjamin followed Nate outside without question. Clara began gathering kindling from the small pile by the stove. Grace curled up in the rocking chair watching everything with wide eyes. Eliza stood in the middle of her cold cabin and felt tears start. Hot, angry, grateful, terrified. Everything at once. Mama! Clara's small hand slipped into hers. Is he going to stay? I don't know, sweetheart. I hope he does. The girl's voice was so quiet, so careful. I hope he stays forever. Outside, the sound of an axe biting wood. Steady. Rhythmic. The sound of someone who knew what he was doing. Eliza moved to the window. Watched Nate swing the axe while Benjamin stacked split wood. The man moved with easy efficiency, no wasted motion. Benjamin watched him like he was memorizing every movement. 20 minutes later, they came back inside arms loaded with firewood. Nate had Benjamin start the fire while he unpacked the supplies Margaret had grudgingly provided. You got a cook pot? Yes. Eliza found her voice, found her spine. I can cook. You don't need to. Ma'am, when's the last time you stood long enough to cook a meal? Silence. Right. He found the pot himself. You sit. I'll handle this. Mr. Cross. Nate. Nate. She forced herself to say it again. I appreciate everything you've done, but I'm not helpless. I can cook for my own children. He looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his expression softened. I know you can, ma'am. I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying you don't have to. Not tonight. Tonight you rest. Let someone else carry the weight for a few hours. The tears came then, no stopping them. Eliza sank into a chair and cried while this stranger, this man named Nate Cross, cooked beans and bacon and made coffee that smelled like heaven. Benjamin sat beside her, put his thin arm around her shoulders. It's okay, Mama. It's going to be okay. I'm sorry. She couldn't stop saying it. I'm so sorry. I should have done better. Should have protected you better. Should have... Mama, stop. Clara knelt at her feet. You did everything. Everything. This isn't your fault. Your daughter's right. Nate spoke without turning from the stove. I heard what happened out there. What they said. And ma'am, none of that was true. None of it. You don't know that. Eliza wiped her eyes. You don't know me. Don't know what I know a woman who sold everything she had, trying to keep her children fed. His voice was quiet, certain. I know a woman who stood in the street and begged because her pride mattered less than her children's lives. I know a woman who's been carrying weight that would break most men, and she's still standing, still fighting. That's what I know, Mrs. Hartwell. And that's enough. The words hit harder than the rocks had, harder than Margaret's cruelty, harder than anything. Because someone saw her, really saw her. Not the desperate widow, not the burden, not the failure, just Eliza, fighting, surviving, still standing. Food's ready. Nate ladled beans into bowls. It's not fancy, but it's hot. The children descended on their bowls like wolves. Eliza started to tell them to slow down to mind their manners, but Nate caught her eye and shook his head. Let them eat. He handed her a bowl. Hunger like that doesn't care about manners. Eliza ate, couldn't help it. The food was simple, just beans and bacon and hard bread, but it tasted like salvation. She ate slowly, trying to make it last, trying to remember the last time her stomach felt this full. Nate ate standing up, watching the children, watching her. Not intrusive, just present. Like he was making sure they were real. Making sure this wasn't a dream that would evaporate when he blinked. When the bowls were empty, Grace climbed down from her chair and walked straight to Nate. Stood there looking up at him with those big eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Nate crouched down, put himself at her level. You're welcome, little miss. Are you going to leave? The question hung in the air. Eliza held her breath. Nate glanced at her, then back at Grace. I don't know yet. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't want you to leave. Grace's voice trembled. Bad things happen when people leave. Something crossed Nate's face. Pain. Old and deep. I know, sweetheart. I know they do. Then stay. Simple as that. A 4-year-old's logic. Just stay. Nate straightened, looked at Eliza. Ma'am, I'd like to make you a proposal. A proposal? Her heart started beating faster. I need work. You need help. Seems like we could help each other. He spoke carefully, like he'd rehearsed this. I'll fix your cabin, repair your fences, get you through winter. In return, I get a place to sleep and meals. No money, just work and food. Fair trade. It was the same offer Luke had made in the original story, but this was different. This was Eliza's story. Eliza's choice. Mr. Cross? Nate. Nate! She stood up, faced him directly. Why? Really? Why would you do this? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, because 4 years ago I made a mistake. A bad one. And a child died because of it. Not directly. It's complicated. But I've been carrying that weight ever since. Been drifting. Running. Trying to outrun what I did. His eyes met hers. I can't bring that child back, ma'am. Can't fix what I broke. But I can make sure your children don't starve. Can make sure they have firewood and a solid roof, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that's how I start making things right. Eliza understood then. He wasn't rescuing her. He was saving himself. 1 month, she heard herself say. We try it for 1 month. If it's not working, I ride on. No questions, no hard feelings. And you sleep in the barn, not in here. Yes, ma'am. And my children call you Mr. Cross, not Nate. Not until I say different. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Yes, ma'am. Eliza extended her hand. 1 month, Mr. Cross. He took it. His palm was rough, warm, solid. 1 month, Mrs. Hartwell. And with that handshake, everything changed. Benjamin grinned. Clara clapped softly. Grace climbed back into the rocking chair and fell asleep immediately, her stomach full for the first time in days. Nate gathered his saddlebags. I'll bed down in the barn. Start on the roof in the morning. Storm's coming in a few days. Can see it in the sky. Mr. Cross. Eliza stopped him at the door. Thank you. I don't have words for what you did today. What you're doing. Just thank you. He tipped his hat. Ma'am, you don't owe me thanks. You owe me nothing. This is just 2 people helping each other survive. That's all. But it wasn't all. They both knew it. Something had shifted. Something had started that neither of them could name yet. When he left, Eliza sank back into her chair and looked at her sleeping children. Full bellies, warm cabin, a stranger in the barn who'd chosen to stay. Outside, the snow began to fall again, but for the first time in 5 months, Eliza Hartwell wasn't afraid of winter. She was afraid of something else entirely. She was afraid of hoping. Dawn came cold and gray, and Eliza woke to the sound of hammering. She sat up too fast, head spinning from yesterday's strange abundance of food. For a moment she couldn't place the sound, couldn't remember why her cabin felt warmer than it had in weeks. Then it came back. Nate Cross. The stranger who'd stood between her children and the town's cruelty. The man who'd promised 1 month. The hammering continued. Steady. Purposeful. Coming from the roof. Benjamin was already awake, standing at the window with his nose pressed to the glass. He's fixing the shingles, Mama. Been up there since before sunrise. He should have waited. Eliza stood wrapping Samuel's old coat around her shoulders. It still smelled like him sometimes when she let herself notice. It's too cold. Too dangerous. He knows what he's doing. Benjamin's voice carried something new. Not quite admiration, not quite hope. Something in between. Watch how he moves, Mama. He's done this before. Eliza joined him at the window. Nate was on the roof, balanced on the steep pitch like he'd been born there. He'd stripped down to his shirt despite the cold, and she could see the muscles in his back working as he pried off damaged shingles and hammered new ones in place. He's going to freeze up there. He brought his own supplies. Benjamin pointed to a stack of materials by the barn. Shingles, nails, tar. He must have bought them yesterday after everything. Used his own money. Guilt twisted in Eliza's stomach. We can't afford to pay him back. He didn't ask us to. Clara appeared beside them, Grace still asleep on her hip. The 9-year-old had taken to carrying her little sister everywhere like she was afraid to let her go. That's what makes him different, Mama. He didn't ask for anything. The hammering stopped. Nate straightened, surveying his work, then climbed down with the easy confidence of someone who'd spent years doing hard things in hard places. When he reached the ground, he looked up and caught them watching. Raised one hand in a brief wave. Benjamin waved back eagerly. Clara lifted Grace's small hand and waved it for her. Eliza just stood there, frozen, feeling exposed in a way that had nothing to do with the thin walls. I should make breakfast. She turned away from the window. We have food now. Real food. I should... Mama. Benjamin's hand caught her arm. Can I go help him? Please, I can hand him tools. Carry things. I'm strong enough. I know I am. Eliza looked at her son. 12 years old with his father's stubborn chin and eyes that had seen too much too soon. He'd been trying so hard to be the man of the house, and failing because he was still just a boy. But having Nate here, having someone to show him, teach him... Yes. The word came out before she could second-guess it. But you stay where he can see you. And if he says it's too dangerous, you come straight back inside. Understood. Benjamin's face split into the first real smile she'd seen in months. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mama. Thank you. He was out the door before she could change her mind, running through the snow in boots that were too small and a coat that was too thin. Eliza watched him reach Nate, watched the man crouch down to the boy's level, listened to the murmur of voices she couldn't quite hear. Then Nate nodded and Benjamin's smile grew wider, and they walked together toward the barn. He's a good man. Clara said it soft. Certain. Mr. Cross, he's good. We don't know that yet. Eliza moved to the stove, grateful for something to do with her hands. We don't know anything about him. We know he stopped them from hurting us. Clara set Grace down carefully. We know he didn't have to, but he did anyway. That's enough, isn't it? Was it? Eliza didn't know anymore. 5 months ago, she'd known what was enough. Samuel's love had been enough. Their small cabin and struggling ranch had been enough. The promise of tomorrow had been enough. Then Samuel died, and the definition of enough had shifted. Shrunk. Became simply enough food to keep the children alive. Enough firewood to keep them from freezing. Enough pride to face another day of failure. Now this stranger was redefining enough again, and Eliza didn't know how to feel about it. She made oatmeal with the supplies Nate had bought. Real oatmeal, not the thin gruel she'd been stretching for weeks. Added a precious spoonful of honey. The smell alone made her stomach clench with remembered hunger. Grace woke up and stumbled to the table, rubbing her eyes. Is Mr. Cross still here? He's outside with Benjamin. Eliza set a bowl in front of her daughter. Eat slowly, sweetheart. Your stomach's not used to... Grace was already shoveling oatmeal into her mouth, pausing only to breathe. Clara ate almost as fast, both of them silent with concentration. Eliza forced herself to eat too, though every bite felt like theft. This was Nate's money. Nate's charity. Even if he called it something else, even if he pretended it was fair trade, they both knew the truth. She was dependent on him now. Completely. And that scared her more than the hunger had. The door opened. Benjamin and Nate stomped inside, bringing cold air and the smell of fresh-cut wood. Mama, you should see. Benjamin's words tumbled over themselves. Mr. Cross is building a wood shelter, a real one with a roof and everything so the firewood stays dry, and he's teaching me how to measure and cut and... Slow down. Eliza couldn't help smiling at her son's enthusiasm. Breathe first, talk second. Nate hung his hat by the door. Morning, ma'am. Hope we didn't wake you with the noise. You didn't. Lie. She'd been awake the moment the hammering started. There's oatmeal if you're hungry. Appreciate it. He moved to the basin, washed his hands with the efficient movements of someone used to hard work. Roof's about half done. Should have it finished by tomorrow if the weather holds. You don't need to. Eliza started. Ma'am, we had an agreement. Nate dried his hands on the towel hanging by the basin. 1 month. I fix things, you feed me. I'm keeping my end of the bargain. You planning to keep yours? It wasn't accusatory, just factual, but it still made Eliza's face heat. Of course. I just meant... Then we're square. He accepted the bowl she handed him. This smells good, Mrs. Hartwell. Thank you. They ate in silence. Not uncomfortable exactly, but waited. Like everyone was aware they were performing some new ritual establishing patterns that would define the next month. Grace broke the silence. Mr. Cross, do you have children? Grace. Eliza's tone was sharp. That's not appropriate to ask. It's all right. Nate set down his spoon. No, little miss. I don't have children, never married, never had the chance to settle down long enough. Why not? Grace's curiosity was relentless. Don't you want to? Grace enough. No, ma'am, it's fine. Nate looked at the 4-year-old with something like sadness in his eyes. I guess I was always moving, always looking for something I couldn't quite name. Figured I'd settle when I found it. But I never did. Not until... He stopped, cleared his throat. Anyway, that's water under the bridge. What's water under the bridge mean? Grace asked. It means the past is past, Clara explained. Right, Mr. Cross? Something like that. Nate stood, carried his empty bowl to the basin. Mrs. Hartwell, I noticed your fence line is in rough shape. Thought I'd work on that this afternoon if you don't object. I don't object. But Mr. Cross... Nate. Eliza took a breath. Nate, you're doing too much. The roof alone is several days of work. The fence will take longer. You can't possibly... Ma'am, I'm not doing too much. I'm doing what needs doing. He pulled his coat back on. That's the agreement. That's what I'm here for. But what about you? The question burst out before she could stop it. What about what you need rest time to yourself? You can't just work from sunup to sundown and... Yes, I can. His voice was gentle but firm. Mrs. Hartwell, I've been drifting for 4 years, working odd jobs, moving on when the work dried up or the town got too familiar. I'm used to hard days, used to earning my keep. This is no different. It is different, Eliza heard herself say. Because this isn't just work. This is my home, my children, my life you're fixing, and I don't understand why. Nate was quiet for a long moment. Then, because I can, because it needs doing, and because... He glanced at the children, then back at her. Because seeing you beg in that street yesterday, seeing those people laugh while your children cried, that was the kind of wrong I can actually fix. Most things in this world I can't do anything about. But this I can fix. So I am. He left before she could respond, Benjamin trailing after him like a devoted shadow. Clara started washing dishes. Grace played with her doll by the fire, and Eliza stood in the middle of her cabin feeling untethered, like the rules she'd been living by had suddenly changed and no one had told her the new ones. The morning passed in domestic rhythm. Eliza mended clothes while Clara practiced her letters, and Grace napped. Outside, the sound of hammering continued, occasionally punctuated by Benjamin's excited questions and Nate's patient answers. Around midday, Eliza made sandwiches from yesterday's bread and took them outside. Found Nate and Benjamin working on the fence line, clearing debris and pulling out rotten posts. Lunch. She held out the plate. Benjamin grabbed a sandwich immediately. Nate hesitated. Mr. Cross, take it. Eliza kept her voice firm. You've been working for 6 hours. You need to eat. Yes, ma'am. He accepted the sandwich, but didn't eat right away. Mrs. Hartwell, I wanted to ask. Your husband's ranch, what was he raising cattle horses? The question caught her off guard. Horses. He trained them mostly, breaking them for saddle, teaching them to work. He was good at it. I noticed the corrals empty. I had to sell them. The words hurt. After Samuel died, the banker said I couldn't manage horses on my own, said I should sell while I could still get decent money. So I did. All except one, a mare named Willow. She's in the barn. Too old to sell for much, but I couldn't... Eliza's voice caught. Samuel loved that horse. I couldn't let her go. Nate nodded slowly. Would you mind if I took a look at her? See what shape she's in? Why? Because horses are valuable, ma'am. If you still have land and a corral you could rebuild. Start small. Maybe buy a young mare and a good stallion. Breed them. Sell the foals. It's not fast money, but it's honest money. Hope flickered in Eliza's chest. Dangerous hope. I don't have money for breeding stock. I barely have money for food. Not yet. Nate took a bite of sandwich. But spring's coming. In spring, ranchers need help with branding fencing building. I can hire out. Make enough to buy stock. If you're willing to wait. If you're willing to try. Benjamin's eyes went wide. Really? We could have horses again. Maybe. Nate's voice was careful. Can't promise anything, but we could try. Eliza looked at this stranger who kept saying we instead of you. This man who was already planning months ahead when their agreement was only for 1 month. Why do you care? She asked. Why does it matter to you what happens to this ranch? Nate met her eyes. Because someone needs to care, ma'am, and right now I'm the someone who's here. That afternoon, Ruth Chen came calling. Eliza saw the wagon approaching and felt her stomach drop. The Chinese woman who ran the general store with her husband was kind, but her presence meant something. News, gossip, questions Eliza didn't want to answer. Mrs. Hartwell. Ruth climbed down from her wagon carrying a basket. I hope I'm not intruding. Of course not. Eliza wiped her hands on her apron, hyper-aware of how shabby she must look. Please come in. Inside, Ruth set the basket on the table. I brought some things. Fabric scraps for the girls. Some hard candy. Edward wanted me to give you this. She pulled out an envelope. What is it? A job offer. Ruth's dark eyes were kind. Edward needs help at the store. Inventory stocking shelves dealing with customers. 3 days a week, $1 a day. Eliza's hands trembled as she took the envelope. $3 a week, $12 a month. It wasn't much, but it was something. Something she'd earned. Not charity. Not dependence. Why? The question came out harsher than she meant. Why would Edward offer me work now? After yesterday. Ruth sat down without being invited. Because yesterday was wrong. What they did to you, what they said. Edward and I, we weren't there. We heard about it after, and we were ashamed. Ashamed of our town. Ashamed we didn't know how bad things had gotten for you. So this is guilt money. No. Ruth's voice firmed. This is a job. Edward needs help. You need money. It's business. Nothing more. Everyone will talk. Let them. Ruth shrugged. People always talk. But Mrs. Hartwell, you have 3 children to feed. You can't afford pride anymore. None of us can. The words stung because they were true. Eliza looked at the envelope. Looked at her daughters watching from the corner. Looked at the closed door beyond which Nate was working himself to exhaustion on her behalf. 3 days a week, she said. Which days? Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. I'll need someone to watch the children. Bring them. Ruth smiled. Clara's old enough to help. Grace can play in the back room. We'll manage. Eliza wanted to refuse. Wanted to maintain some last scrap of independence. But the envelope in her hands felt like hope. Fragile. Precious. Impossible to ignore. I'll be there Tuesday. She forced the words out. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. Tell Edward, thank you. You can thank him yourself. Ruth stood. Oh, and Mrs. Hartwell, the man working on your roof. Nathaniel Cross. Edward asked around about him. Eliza's heart stuttered. And he used to be a deputy sheriff in Texas. Left 4 years ago under unclear circumstances. Been drifting since. Working odd jobs. Never staying long. Ruth's expression was neutral. Thought you should know. After Ruth left, Eliza stood holding the envelope and trying to decide what she felt. Relief about the job. Unease about Nate's past. Gratitude mixed with resentment that people were suddenly offering help after months of silence. Clara touched her arm. Mama. Is it good news? Yes, sweetheart. It's good news. I have a job. We'll have money coming in. That's wonderful. Clara's smile was tentative. Does that mean Mr. Cross can leave now, since we'll have money? The question hit like a fist. I don't know. Maybe. I don't want him to leave. Grace appeared beside them. He's nice, and he makes Benjamin smile again. And he fixed the roof so we don't get wet when it rains. Why would we want him to leave? We wouldn't. Clara shot Eliza a look, an adult look on a 9-year-old's face. Right, Mama. We want him to stay. Did they? Did she? Eliza didn't know anymore. Yesterday she'd been desperate. Today she had food and firewood and a job offer. Tomorrow she might have choices again. Independence. The ability to stand on her own. But the thought of Nate leaving, of going back to managing everything alone, of watching Benjamin's smile fade and Grace's hope dim, that thought hurt worse than the hunger had. That evening, Nate came in after dark, exhausted and filthy. Benjamin was asleep on his feet, but grinning proud of a full day's work. Fence is about half done. Nate washed his hands, his movements slow with fatigue. Should have it finished in a few days. Then I'll start on the barn door. It's hanging crooked. Won't last the winter like that. Mr. Cross? Eliza served him dinner, kept her voice neutral. I received a job offer today, at Chen's General Store. 3 days a week. Nate looked up. That's good news, ma'am. Real good news. It is. She paused. It means I'll have income. Steady income. Which means you don't need to stay. If you don't want to, I'll be able to manage now. The words hung in the air. Benjamin's head snapped up. Clara grabbed Grace's hand. Nate set down his fork. Ma'am, are you asking me to leave? No. I'm saying you can. If you want to. You've done so much already, more than anyone could expect. And if you have other places to go, other jobs waiting, I don't want to keep you out of obligation. Mrs. Hartwell. Nate's gray eyes held hers. I made an agreement. 1 month. We're 3 days in. I keep my word. If you want me to leave, say so plain. But if you're trying to give me an out because you think you're a burden, then ma'am, you're wrong. I'm here because I want to be, because this work matters, because your children matter. And $3 a week from Chen's store isn't going to be enough. You know it, and I know it. I can manage. You've been managing. His voice was gentle but firm. For 5 months you've been managing. Barely. Selling everything. Going hungry. Begging in the street. That's not managing, ma'am. That's drowning slow. And I'm not going to stand by and watch you drown when I can help. Why? The question burst out. Why do you care so much you don't know us, don't owe us anything? So why? Nate was quiet for a long moment. Then, 4 years ago I shot a man. He was robbing a bank, had a gun, took a hostage. I was deputy sheriff, did everything by the book, gave warning, aimed for his shoulder. But I missed. Hit his chest instead. He died right there in the street. He looked down at his hands. Turned out the gun wasn't loaded, and the hostage was his 6-year-old daughter. He was desperate, hungry, trying to feed his family, and I killed him for it. Silence. Complete. Absolute. The law said I did right. Nate's voice was barely above a whisper. Said it was a clean shoot. Justified. But that little girl looked at me with eyes just like Grace's and screamed that I'd killed her daddy. And she was right. I had. Tears tracked down his weathered face. Her mother couldn't make it alone. Couldn't feed the girl and her 2 brothers. Last I heard before I left Texas, they'd gone to an orphanage, all 3 of them, because I killed their father for trying to feed them. He looked up at Eliza. So when I see you and your children, when I see that same desperate hunger, that same impossible choice, I can't walk away, can't let it happen again, not when I can stop it. Even if I can't fix what I broke, maybe I can keep it from breaking again. Eliza couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. This man she'd thought was a stranger had just given her the most intimate piece of himself. His shame, his guilt, his reason for everything. Mr. Cross. She found her voice. That wasn't your fault. You were doing your job, following the law. You can't blame yourself for... Yes, I can. He wiped his face roughly. And I do. Every day. But ma'am, I'm not asking for forgiveness. Not asking you to absolve me. I'm just telling you why I'm here. Why I'm staying. So you understand this isn't about you being a burden. This is about me trying to make one thing right in a world where I made something terribly wrong." Benjamin spoke up, his voice small. "My pa died trying to fix a fence. Horse spooked. Threw him. Broke his neck. It was nobody's fault. Just bad luck. Bad timing. Ma says sometimes bad things just happen and we can't stop them." "Your ma's right." Nate's voice steadied. "But sometimes we can stop them. Sometimes we're in the right place at the right time to make a difference. And when that happens, we have to try. Even if we're scared. Even if we fail, we have to try." Grace climbed down from her chair and walked to Nate. Stood there looking up at him with those impossibly big eyes. "You didn't mean to hurt that little girl's daddy," she said. "You were trying to help. Sometimes helping goes wrong. But that doesn't mean you stop trying." Out of the mouths of babes. Nate looked at this 4-year-old child, and something in his face cracked open. "You're right, little miss. It doesn't mean I stopped trying." "Good." Grace climbed into his lap without invitation. Settled there like she belonged. "Because we need you. Mama needs you, even if she won't say it." "Grace." Eliza's face burned. "That's enough." "It's true, Mama." Clara joined in. "You do need him. We all do. And that's okay. Needing people isn't bad. Pa used to say that's what communities are for. People helping people. That's how we survive." Samuel had said that, had believed it, and Eliza had forgotten somewhere in the desperate scramble of the last 5 months. Had forgotten that accepting help wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. 1 month, she heard herself say. "We agreed to 1 month. Let's see where we are at the end of it. See if—" She couldn't finish. Couldn't name what she was hoping for. 1 month. Nate agreed. "And then we decide, together." That night, after the children were asleep and Nate had gone to the barn, Eliza stood at the window and watched snow begin to fall. Soft, gentle, nothing like the harsh storm that had raged the day she'd begged in the street. Everything was changing. The cabin was warmer, the children were fed, there was work to do and money coming in, and a man in the barn who'd promised to stay. But Eliza had learned the hard way that promises broke, that good things ended, that tomorrow was never guaranteed. So she stood at the window and watched the snow and tried not to hope too hard, because hope she'd discovered was the most dangerous thing of all. The first week passed in a blur of work and carefully maintained distance. Eliza started at Chen's store on Tuesday. The walk into town made her stomach clench, remembering the rocks and the laughter, and Margaret Thornton's cruel eyes. But Ruth met her at the door with a warm smile and a list of tasks, and Edward treated her like any other employee. No pity, no judgment, just business. The townspeople who came in stared, whispered. Some turned around and left, rather than be served by the desperate widow who'd begged in the street. But others simply bought their supplies and left. And at the end of the day, Ruth pressed $3 silver into Eliza's palm and said, "See you Thursday." $3. It wasn't enough. Nate had been right about that. But it was hers. Earned. Not given out of charity or obligation or guilt, and that mattered more than the amount. She came home to find the fence finished, the barn door repaired, the wood shelter completed and stacked full of split logs. Nate and Benjamin were in the corral with Willow, the old mare Eliza hadn't been able to sell. The horse looked better than she had in months, her coat brushed her hooves, trimmed, moving with something like her old spirit. "Mama, look," Benjamin called out when he saw her. "Mr. Cross says Willow's still got good years left. Says we can use her for breeding if we can find the right stallion." Eliza leaned on the fence rail and watched Nate work. He moved around the horse with quiet confidence, his hands gentle but firm, his voice low and soothing. Willow responded to him like she'd known him all her life, not just a handful of days. "She trusts you," Eliza said. Nate looked over. "Horses are simple, ma'am. You treat them fair, they trust you. People are more complicated." "Are they?" She heard the challenge in her own voice. Or are people just like horses, treat them fair, and they'll trust you too? Maybe. He ran his hand down Willow's neck. But horses don't lie. Don't pretend. Don't smile while they're planning to kick you. People do all that and more. Sounds like you've been kicked a lot. Enough times to learn. He opened the gate, led Willow back to the barn. Benjamin followed, still chattering about breeding plans and foal prices, and dreams that might actually be possible now. Clara had dinner ready when they came inside. Not just ready, but good, the 9-year-old having absorbed everything Eliza taught her and added her own touches. The cabin smelled like home for the first time since Samuel died, and Eliza felt something in her chest unclench just slightly. They ate together, the 5 of them crowded around the table that was too small, passing food and talking about their days. Benjamin described everything he'd learned about fence building. Clara reported that Grace had finally learned to tie her own shoes. Grace demonstrated proud and beaming. Nate was quiet, mostly listening, occasionally answering direct questions, but never volunteering much about himself. He'd given them his worst secret that first night, and since then had retreated into careful politeness. Present, but distant. There, but not quite. It bothered Eliza more than she wanted to admit. After dinner, Nate helped Benjamin with arithmetic while Eliza mended, and Clara read to Grace from the one book they'd managed to keep. A collection of fairy tales with a cracked spine and water-stained pages, but the words still worked. The stories still transported. "Mr. Cross," Benjamin said, staring at his slate. "How do you figure percentages Mama tried to explain but I don't understand?" "Let me see." Nate leaned over the boy's shoulder. "All right. Say you've got 100 head of cattle. 20% die in winter. How many you lose?" Benjamin screwed up his face in concentration. 20. That's right. Now how'd you figure that? Because 20% means 20 out of every 100. Exactly. Nate tapped the slate. It's just division, son. Taking the whole and breaking it into parts. Once you understand that, the rest is easy. Son. The word slipped out so naturally that Eliza wasn't sure Nate even noticed, but Benjamin did. His face lit up like Christmas morning and he bent over his slate with renewed determination. "I'll get it, Mr. Cross. I promise I'll get it." "I know you will." Nate stood, stretched, winced at something in his back. "You're smart, Benjamin. Smarter than you think. Just takes practice." He was good with them. Too good. Eliza watched him show Benjamin a calculation trick, listened to him answer Grace's endless questions with patience Samuel had rarely managed, saw him treat Clara's observations with the seriousness they deserved. He fit. That was the problem. He fit so seamlessly into their broken family that Eliza had started forgetting he was temporary. Started imagining what it would be like if he stayed. Really stayed. Not just for 1 month, but forever. And that was dangerous. More dangerous than the hunger had been, because hope hurt worse than despair when it was ripped away. Thursday at the store, Margaret Thornton came in. Eliza was restocking shelves when she felt eyes on her back. Turned to find the woman who'd kicked snow at her children standing there with a basket and a superior expression. "Mrs. Hartwell." Margaret's voice dripped false sweetness. "How nice to see you've found employment. I'm sure Edward is very generous to take on someone with your limited experience." Ruth appeared beside Eliza instantly. "Mrs. Thornton, what can we help you with today?" "I need flour, 5 pounds, and sugar, and I'd prefer if she didn't handle it." Margaret's eyes never left Eliza's face. "I'm very particular about cleanliness." The insult was clear. Eliza's hands clenched into fists, nails digging into her palms. But before she could speak, Ruth stepped forward. "Mrs. Thornton, Eliza is my employee. If you don't want her assistance, you're welcome to shop elsewhere." "Excuse me." Margaret's face reddened. "I've been shopping here for 10 years. You can't—" "I can and I am." Ruth's voice stayed calm but firm. "Edward and I run this store. We choose who we employ, and we choose who we serve. If you can't treat our employees with basic respect, then we don't want your business." Margaret sputtered. "This is outrageous." Wait until my husband hears. Tell him. Edward appeared from the back room. Tell him I said he's welcome to take his business to the next town, 40 miles south. I'm sure they'll appreciate the ride. Margaret stared at them both, clearly expecting someone to back down. When no one did, she grabbed her basket and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Eliza released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. You didn't have to do that. She's a good customer. You'll lose money. Some money isn't worth having. Edward's lined face was serious. What happened to you in that street, Mrs. Hartwell, that was wrong? Ruth and we can't undo it, but we can make sure it doesn't happen again. Not in our store. Thank you. The words felt inadequate. Thank you both. No thanks needed. Ruth squeezed her shoulder. Now those shelves won't stock themselves. That evening, Eliza came home to find a stranger's horse tied to her fence. Her heart seized. She hurried inside, clutching Clara and Grace close, to find Nate sitting at her table across from a man she'd never seen before. Large, weathered, with a scar running down his left cheek and eyes that held nothing soft. Benjamin was pressed into the corner, silent and scared. Nate's posture was deceptively relaxed, but Eliza could see the tension in his shoulders, could see his right hand resting casually near the knife at his belt. Mrs. Hartwell. Nate's voice was calm, too calm. This is Jack Hollis. He's looking for someone. I was just telling him he's got the wrong place. Wrong place, he says. Jack Hollis's voice was gravel and rust. But I heard tell there's a man named Cross working here. Used to be a deputy in Texas, and I've been looking for a deputy named Cross for 4 years now. Eliza's blood went cold. I think you should leave, Mr. Hollis. I'll leave when I'm ready. Jack didn't even look at her. See, 4 years ago, Deputy Nathaniel Cross shot my brother, killed him dead in the street, said it was justified, said Daniel was robbing a bank. But what they didn't mention was that Daniel's gun wasn't loaded, that he was just desperate, just trying to feed his family. The room tilted. This was the brother, the family, the past Nate had been running from. Your brother took a hostage. Nate's voice stayed level. A child. He pointed a gun at a 6-year-old girl's head. I didn't know it wasn't loaded. No way I could have known. You could have waited. Jack's hands clenched. Could have talked him down. Could have done anything except put a bullet in his chest. I did wait. I gave warning. I aimed for his shoulder. But he moved. Nate's jaw tightened. Mr. Hollis, I'm sorry. Sorrier than you'll ever know. What happened to your brother, to his children, that haunts me every day. But I was doing my job. Following procedure. If I could take it back. But you can't. Jack stood slowly. Can't bring Daniel back. Can't undo what you did to his kids. So I've been following you, waiting for the right moment. And I think I've found it. His eyes moved to Benjamin, to Clara and Grace, back to Eliza. You've got yourself a nice little family here, Deputy. Be a shame if something happened to them. Be a shame if you had to watch them suffer the way Daniel's kids suffered. Eliza moved without thinking, putting herself between Jack Hollis and her children. Get out. Get out of my house now. Ma'am, I'm not going to hurt you. Jack's smile was cold. Not directly. But Cross here, he needs to understand what he took from us. Needs to feel it. And the best way to make a man feel something is to take away what he loves. He doesn't love us. The lie came swift and desperate. He's just hired help. A drifter. He'll be gone in 3 weeks. He means nothing to us, and we mean nothing to him. That's so. Jack looked at Nate. That true, Deputy? These people mean nothing to you. Nate's gray eyes met Eliza's, held them, and she saw everything he'd been hiding. All the careful distance, all the deliberate restraint, all of it stripped away in one unguarded moment. No, he said quietly. That's not true. Nate, don't. Eliza's voice broke. Don't give him... They mean everything. Nate stood slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. Mrs. Hartwell and her children, they gave me something I thought I'd lost. Purpose, redemption, a reason to stop running. So if you want to hurt me, Jack, you hurt me. But you leave them alone. They had nothing to do with Daniel, nothing to do with Texas. They're innocent. So were Daniel's kids. Jack's voice went hard. Innocent. And they're in an orphanage now because of you. So no deputy. I don't think I'll leave these people alone. I think I'll make sure you watch them struggle the way I watched my niece and nephews struggle. Make sure you feel helpless the way we felt helpless. Over my dead body. Eliza surprised herself with the steel in her voice. Mr. Hollis, I'm sorry for what happened to your brother's children. Truly sorry. But threatening mine won't fix it. Won't bring your brother back. Won't help anyone. Might make me feel better. No, it won't. Clara stepped forward, 9 years old and fearless. My pa died 5 months ago. I know what it's like to lose someone, and I know that hurting other people doesn't make the hurt go away. It just spreads it around. Jack stared at the girl. Your pa have anything to do with his death? No. But even if he did, I wouldn't want revenge. I'd want to understand, want to know why, want to make sure it never happened again. Clara's voice shook but held. That's what my pa would want. Not more pain, just understanding. Something flickered across Jack's scarred face. Not quite regret, not quite sympathy, but something. You're a smart girl, he said finally. Smarter than me, probably. He looked at Nate. This isn't over, Deputy. I'm not going to hurt these people today. But I'm not done with you either. Daniel deserves justice, and I mean to get it. Then turn me in. Nate spread his hands. I'll go peacefully. Face whatever charges you want to bring, but leave them out of it. There are no charges, you know that. The law said you did right. Jack moved to the door. So I have to make my own justice, and I will. When you least expect it, when you've gotten comfortable. That's when I'll take from you what you took from Daniel. He left. The door closed. And Eliza's legs gave out. Nate caught her before she hit the floor, his strong arms suddenly around her, supporting her weight. I'm sorry. God, Eliza, I'm so sorry. I should have left. Should have known he'd track me down eventually. I've put you and your children in danger and... Stop. Eliza found her voice. Just stop talking and let me think. But thinking was impossible with her heart racing, and her children scared, and this man who'd become essential suddenly revealed as dangerous. Not because of who he was now, but because of who he'd been. What he'd done. The past that wouldn't let him go. You need to leave. The words hurt coming out. Tonight. Now. Before he comes back. Mrs. Hartwell. Eliza. She pulled away from him. My name is Eliza, and I'm telling you, as the owner of this ranch and the mother of these children, you need to go. I can't risk them. Can't risk him coming back and what? Benjamin's voice was fierce. Mama, Mr. Cross didn't do anything wrong. He was protecting people. Doing his job. You can't blame him for that man's brother being desperate. I'm not blaming him. I'm protecting you. We don't need protecting from Mr. Cross. Clara joined her brother. We need protecting from men like Jack Hollis. And Mr. Cross is the only one here who can do that. Grace started crying. Not loud. Just soft, broken sobs that tore Eliza's heart. I don't want Mr. Cross to leave. I don't want anyone else to leave. Oh, sweetheart. Eliza gathered her youngest daughter close. I know you don't. But sometimes people have to leave to keep us safe. That's not true. Grace pulled back her small face fierce. Sometimes people stay because leaving would hurt more. Because we're stronger together than apart. Right, Mr. Cross? All eyes turned to Nate. He stood there, hat in hand, looking more uncertain than Eliza had ever seen him. I don't know, little miss, he said quietly. I want to believe that. Want to believe I make you stronger instead of putting you in danger. But Jack Hollis is right about one thing. I took someone from him, and whether I meant to or not, whether I followed procedure or not, That pain is real. His anger is real, and he's going to act on it. So we face it together. Benjamin's voice cracked, but didn't break. That's what Pa always said. Problems get smaller when more people carry them. Well, we're people, Mr. Cross. And we're here. And we're not going to let you face this alone. Your pa was a wise man. Nate's voice was rough. But son, this isn't your fight. Yes, it is. Clara stepped beside her brother. You made it our fight when you stood up for us in town, when you stopped them from hurting us, when you fixed our house and fed us, and taught Ben how to build fences. You made yourself part of this family, Mr. Cross, and families don't abandon each other when things get hard. Eliza wanted to argue, wanted to insist they were wrong, that safety mattered more than loyalty, that protecting her children was her only job. But looking at their faces, their determination, their absolute certainty that sending Nate away would be worse than keeping him. She couldn't do it. Couldn't send him back into the cold and the loneliness and the running. Couldn't take away the first good thing any of them had found in months. One condition, she heard herself say. If Jack Hollis comes back, if he threatens my children directly, you leave. Immediately. No arguments. No discussion. You take your horse and you ride away and you let him follow you instead of hurting them. Can you agree to that? Nate's eyes held hers. Yes, ma'am. I can agree to that. Then you stay. The words felt like stepping off a cliff. You stay, and we figure this out together. But Nate, she used his first name deliberately. If anything happens to my children because of this, I'll never forgive you. Or myself. Nothing's going to happen to them. His voice carried absolute conviction. I promise you that, Eliza. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to do, your children will be safe. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed, listening to her daughter's breathing, and trying to convince herself she'd made the right decision. But doubt gnawed at her. What if Jack came back? What if he hurt the children? What if she'd just chosen sentiment over safety? Around midnight, she gave up and went to the window. Found Nate sitting outside, the barn rifle across his knees, keeping watch. He'd probably been there since they all went to bed. Would probably stay there until dawn. She wrapped Samuel's coat around her shoulders and went out. The snow crunched under her bare feet, cold and sharp, but she barely felt it. You should be asleep, Nate said without turning. So should you. Can't. Not with Jack Hollis knowing where to find us. Eliza sat beside him, close enough to feel his warmth, but not quite touching. Tell me the truth. Is he going to come back? Yes. No hesitation, no false comfort. He's been tracking me for 4 years. He's not going to stop now. Then why did he leave? Why not just do whatever he's planning now? Because your daughter got to him. Nate's voice was soft. Clara. What she said about understanding instead of revenge. That gave him pause. Might not have changed his mind permanently, but it bought us time. Time for what? Time to figure out a plan. Time to prepare. Time to... He stopped. Started again. Time to make sure you and your children are protected, no matter what happens. You're going to leave, aren't you? The realization hit like a fist. You're going to let him catch you somewhere far from here. If it comes to that, yes. No. Eliza grabbed his arm. No, you promised. You promised 1 month. You promised to help us get through winter. You can't just... Eliza. He turned to face her, and in the moonlight, his eyes looked ancient, haunted. If it's a choice between keeping my promise and keeping your children safe, there's no choice. There's only one right answer. The right answer is we face this together. She didn't let go of his arm. The right answer is we're stronger as a unit than as individuals. The right answer is you stop trying to be a martyr and accept that you have people who care about you now. I'm not worth caring about. That's not your decision to make. Her voice shook with sudden anger. You don't get to decide your own worth, Nate. Other people decide that. And we've decided you matter. All of us. Me, Benjamin, Clara, Grace. We've decided you're worth keeping, worth fighting for. So stop trying to throw yourself away like you're garbage." He stared at her. "You really believe that?" "Yes." The word came out fierce. "I believe it. And if you can't believe it yourself, then believe that we need you. Not just for the work, not just for the protection, but because you make us better, make us whole in a way we haven't been since Samuel died." Nate's hand came up slowly, carefully, and cupped her cheek. His palm was rough and warm, and Eliza found herself leaning into it without meaning to. "You're the strongest woman I've ever met," he said quietly. "You know that Samuel Hartwell was a lucky man. Samuel was a good man who died too soon and left me drowning." The honesty surprised her. "And you're a good man who showed up at exactly the right moment. That's not luck, Nate. That's something else. Something bigger. Like fate. Like grace." She covered his hand with hers. Undeserved, unexpected, but precious beyond measure. They sat there in the snow, hands joined, breath misting in the cold air. And for just a moment, Eliza let herself imagine a future. Not just survival, but actual living. Not just managing, but thriving. Not alone, but together. Then Nate pulled away gently. "You should go inside. You're freezing." "So are you." "I'm used to it." "That doesn't make it right." Eliza stood but didn't leave. "Nate, promise me something. Promise me you won't make any decisions without talking to me first. About Jack, about leaving, about any of it. Promise me that." He looked up at her, this woman who'd somehow become the center of his world in less than 2 weeks. "I promise." "Good." She started toward the cabin, then turned back. "And Nate, thank you. For staying, for caring, for making us believe things could get better." She didn't wait for his response. Just went inside and closed the door and leaned against it, heart pounding. She was falling in love with him. That was the truth she'd been avoiding. Falling in love with a man who wasn't her husband, who came with dangerous baggage, who might leave at any moment. And she had no idea if that made her brave or foolish, or some terrible combination of both. 3 days passed with no sign of Jack Hollis, and the waiting was worse than any confrontation could have been. Nate barely slept. Eliza would wake in the middle of the night and see lamplight in the barn, or find him sitting on the porch with his rifle watching the horizon, like he could will danger away through sheer vigilance. He worked during the day with the same focused intensity, finishing the barn repairs and starting on the corral fence, always positioning himself where he could see anyone approaching. Benjamin shadowed him constantly now, less like a student, and more like a deputy, scanning the landscape with the same wary attention. The boy had lost something in Jack Hollis's visit. Not innocence exactly, but the last remnants of childhood certainty that adults could keep bad things from happening. "Mr. Cross," Benjamin said on the 3rd morning, handing Nate a hammer. "If that man comes back, what are we going to do?" "We're going to handle it." Nate drove a nail with 3 precise strikes. "Don't you worry about that." "But how he wants to hurt you. Wants to hurt us to hurt you. How do you handle someone like that?" Nate set down the hammer. "Son, some men are carrying so much pain, they don't know what to do with it, except spread it around. Jack Hollis is one of those men. His brother died, and Jack thinks revenge will make that hurt less. It won't, but he has to figure that out himself. What if he doesn't figure it out before he does something terrible? Then I stop him. Simple as that." Nate's voice carried absolute certainty. "Whatever it takes, I stop him. But Benjamin, I need you to promise me something. If things go bad, if Jack shows up and there's trouble, you get your mother and sisters and you run. Don't try to help me. Don't try to be brave. Just run and don't look back." "But promise me." Nate's gray eyes were steel. "Your pa died and left your mama alone. I'm not going to be responsible for you dying and leaving her with nobody. You're the man of this family's son. That means protecting the women, even if it means running, even if it means leaving me behind. You understand?" Benjamin's jaw worked. "Yes, sir. I understand." "Good." Nate picked up the hammer again. "Now hand me those nails. This fence won't build itself. Inside the cabin, Clara was teaching Grace to read, while Eliza prepared for her Saturday shift at Chen's store. The 9-year-old had taken over most of the household management without being asked, seeming to understand that her mother's mind was elsewhere, consumed with worry about Jack Hollis and what his return would mean. "Mama," Clara said, not looking up from the book. "Are you in love with Mr. Cross?" Eliza's hands froze in the middle of braiding her hair. "What kind of question is that?" "A honest one." Clara kept her eyes on the page. "You look at him different now, and you say his name different, like it means something." "Clara, that's not appropriate." "I don't mind if you are." The girl finally looked up. "In love with him, I mean. Pa's been gone 5 months. That's a long time to be alone. And Mr. Cross is good. He takes care of us, makes you smile. I think Pa would approve." "Your father hasn't even been gone half a year." Eliza's voice came out harsher than she meant. "How can you talk about me replacing him so easily?" "I'm not talking about replacing him." Clara's voice stayed calm, adult, in a way that made Eliza's heart hurt. "Nobody could replace Pa. But Mr. Cross doesn't have to replace him to still be important, to still matter, to still be someone worth loving." Grace looked between them, confused. "I love Mr. Cross. He's nice to me. Is that wrong?" "No, sweetheart." Eliza gathered her youngest daughter close. "That's not wrong. It's just complicated." Why, Grace's logic was relentless. If someone's nice and makes you happy and helps you, why is loving them complicated? Because love meant vulnerability. Because love meant depending on someone who might leave. Because love meant giving someone the power to destroy you. And Eliza had already been destroyed once. She couldn't survive it again. But she couldn't explain that to a 4-year-old, so she just kissed Grace's forehead and said, "Sometimes grown-up feelings are hard to explain, baby. Just trust that Mama knows what she's doing." Clara's eyes said she didn't believe that for a second, but she went back to the reading lesson without argument. At Chen's store, the day started normal enough. Eliza restocked shelves, helped customers, swept floors. Edward had her working the register, now trusting her with money and calculations, treating her like a valued employee rather than an act of charity. It felt good. Felt like dignity slowly being restored. Then Victor Blackwood walked in. Eliza's stomach dropped. The banker who held the mortgage on her land, who'd refused to extend her loan after Samuel's death, who'd looked at her desperation and seen opportunity rather than humanity. He was a tall man with silver hair and expensive clothes, carrying himself with the assurance of someone who'd never worried about money a day in his life. "Mrs. Hartwell?" His voice was smooth, cultured. "How unexpected to see you here." "Mr. Blackwood." Eliza kept her voice neutral. "What can I help you find?" "Actually, I came to speak with you." He glanced around the empty store. Ruth and Edward were in the back room. "About your property." "The mortgage is current." Eliza's hands clenched. "I've made every payment since Samuel died." "Barely." Victor's smile was thin. "You're surviving month to month, Mrs. Hartwell. One bad winter, one sick child, one unexpected expense, and you'll default. We both know it." "What's your point?" "My point is, I'd like to make you an offer. A generous one. I'll buy your property for $2,000. That's well above market value for a struggling ranch with a widow owner. You could take that money, move somewhere civilized, give your children actual opportunities instead of—" "No." The word came out flat, hard. "My property is not for sale." "Mrs. Hartwell, be reasonable." "I said no." Eliza stepped closer, dropping her voice so any customers who might enter wouldn't hear. "I know what my property is worth, Mr. Blackwood, and I know you want it because of the water rights, because my creek feeds into your land, because buying me out would give you control of the whole valley. Well, you can't have it. That land is my children's inheritance, their future, and I will die before I let you take it from them." Victor's expression hardened. "You're making a mistake. Winter's barely started. By March, you'll be begging me to take that ranch off your hands, and when you come to me then, my offer will be half what it is now. Then I guess I'll see you in March." Eliza turned her back on him, hands shaking with rage and fear. "Now, if you're not buying anything, I need to get back to work." She heard him leave the door closing with deliberate softness that somehow felt more threatening than a slam. Ruth appeared from the back room immediately. "I heard." Her voice was tight. "That man is poison, Eliza. You watch yourself around him." "He wants my land." "He wants everyone's land." Ruth began rearranging items that didn't need rearranging, her movements sharp with anger. "Been buying up property all over the territory. Small ranchers who can't make payments, widows who can't manage a loan. He swoops in with his generous offers and his civilized manner, and people who don't know better take his money and leave. Then he consolidates the land, controls the water, and charges everyone else whatever he wants. Samuel never trusted him." Eliza remembered conversations from before when things were good. Said any man who smiled that much while talking about money was hiding something rotten underneath. "Your husband was right." Ruth's dark eyes were fierce. "You hold on to that land, Eliza, whatever it takes. Because once Blackwood owns the water rights, he owns the whole valley, and the rest of us will be at his mercy." The weight of it pressed down on Eliza's shoulders. It wasn't just about her anymore. Wasn't just about keeping a roof over her children's heads. Her small ranch with its struggling finances and broken fences was somehow the last line of defense against a man who wanted to own everything. She thought about telling Nate when she got home, then decided against it. He had enough to worry about with Jack Hollis. He didn't need to know that their problems were multiplying like weeds in untended soil, but secrets had a way of coming out, especially in small territories where everyone knew everyone else's business. That evening, as Eliza was making dinner, Benjamin burst through the door with news. "Mama, there's talk in town. They're saying Mr. Blackwood is hiring men, rough men, cowboys and drifters who work for cash and don't ask questions." Nate, who'd been washing up at the basin, went still. "Where'd you hear this?" "At the feed store. 2 men were talking. They didn't know I was listening." Benjamin's face was troubled. "One of them said Blackwood's planning to make examples. Said small ranchers who won't sell are going to face accidents, property damage, livestock deaths, things that look natural but aren't." "That's just talk." Eliza tried to keep her voice calm. "Men exaggerate, make things sound worse than they are." "Maybe." Nate dried his hands slowly. "Or maybe Blackwood's decided to stop asking nicely. Mrs. Hartwell did something happen today, something you haven't mentioned." Eliza met his eyes and saw he already knew. Saw he'd probably heard about Blackwood's visit to the store before Benjamin had even gotten home. Small towns didn't keep secrets well. "He made me an offer for the ranch." She set down the spoon she'd been stirring with. $2,000. I refused. 2,000? Nate's voice was carefully neutral. "That's a lot of money, Eliza." "It's not enough." She turned to face him fully. "This ranch is worth more than money. It's Samuel's legacy, my children's future, and I won't hand it over to a man who wants to control everything and everyone in this valley. Even if keeping it means putting yourself in danger. Even then." She lifted her chin. "I've been scared before, Nate. Been desperate. Been beaten down. But I'm still here. Still standing. And I'm not going to let Victor Blackwood or anyone else chase me off my own land." Something shifted in Nate's expression. Pride, maybe, or respect. "All right then. We fight. But we fight smart. Benjamin starting tomorrow, you don't go anywhere alone. Clara, same for you. Grace stays with your mother at all times. We assume Blackwood's men are watching. Assume they're looking for opportunities, and we don't give them any." "You think he'll really come after us?" Clara's voice was small. "I think desperate men do desperate things." Nate crouched down to her level. "But here's what you need to understand. Blackwood wants to scare you, wants you to feel helpless. That's how men like him win. They make you afraid, and fear makes you careless. So we're not going to be afraid. We're going to be careful. There's a difference." "I'm scared anyway," Grace whispered. "That's okay." Nate pulled the little girl into a hug. "Being scared is normal. It's what you do with the scared that matters. You can let it freeze you, or you can use it to stay sharp. Stay alert. We're going to use it to stay sharp. All of us. Together. That night, Eliza woke to voices outside, low and urgent. She grabbed Samuel's old coat and crept to the window, saw 3 figures by the barn. Nate and 2 other men, one of whom she recognized as Edward Chen. She should have stayed inside, should have let the men handle whatever business they were discussing. But the fear from earlier, the weight of Victor Blackwood's threats, and Jack Hollis's promise of revenge drove her outside before she could think better of it. "Watching the property," Edward was saying as she approached. "My cousin saw them yesterday, 2 men, rough-looking, sitting horses on the ridge above your creek." Blackwood's men. Nate's voice was grim. "Seeing what we've got, planning their move." "There's more." The other man spoke up. Eliza recognized him now as Jacob Stone, the town marshal, tall and weathered with a badge that caught moonlight. "I got word from the territorial marshal's office. There's been complaints filed against you, Mrs. Hartwell. Trespassing, property damage, theft." "What?" Eliza's voice came out sharp. "That's impossible. I haven't left my property except to work at Chen's store. How could I?" "You couldn't." Marshal Stone's voice was gentle. "These are false complaints, ma'am. Manufactured, but they're official, filed with the territorial office, which means technically I could arrest you, take you to the county seat for trial." "Let me guess." Nate's voice was cold. "Victor Blackwood filed these complaints." "His lawyer did, but yes." The marshal pulled out a folded paper. "I'm supposed to serve you with this summons, Mrs. Hartwell. Appear in court next month to answer charges." "And if she appears?" Nate asked. "What happens to her children while she's gone? Who takes care of the ranch? Property would likely be seized pending trial." Marshal Stone's face was troubled. "Standard procedure in cases where the accused can't maintain their holdings. Blackwood would probably offer to purchase it at auction, for pennies on the dollar." So this is his play. Edward's anger was palpable. Force her to court, take her property, all legal and proper. There has to be something we can do. Nate turned to the marshal. "Some way to fight this." "There is." Marshal Stone looked at Eliza. "Don't go. Ignore the summons. Force them to come arrest you here on your property in front of witnesses. Make Blackwood's corruption visible. Sometimes the best defense is making your enemy show his true face." "But that means when they do come," Eliza started, "it means we're ready." The marshal's voice was firm. "It means the whole town knows what's happening, knows it's wrong. And ma'am, public opinion matters. Even territorial judges have to face voters eventually." "What if public opinion isn't enough?" Eliza's voice shook. "What if Blackwood wins anyway? What happens to my children?" "He won't win." Nate's voice was absolute. "We won't let him." "You can't promise that." "Yes, I can." He turned to face her fully. "Eliza, I've been a coward for 4 years, running from what I did, running from responsibility, running from anything that might require me to stand and fight. But I'm done running. You stand? I stand with you. Blackwood wants this ranch, he's going to have to go through me first, and I promise you, that's not going to be easy." Marshal Stone cleared his throat. "Mr. Cross, I appreciate the sentiment, but you should know I did some checking on you. Know about what happened in Texas. Know about Jack Hollis looking for you. If Blackwood's men find out you're here, they might use that, might bring in Hollis, turn this into something bigger than a land dispute." "Let them try." Nate's jaw set hard. "I'm not hiding anymore. Not from Hollis. Not from Blackwood. Not from anyone. I made mistakes. I'll answer for them. But not until these people are safe. Not until Eliza and her children have what they need." Edward clasped Nate's shoulder. "You're a good man, Cross. Ruth and I will spread word. Make sure people know what Blackwood's doing. Make sure when trouble comes, you're not facing it alone. Appreciate it." Nate shook his hand. "But you be careful. Blackwood's got money and influence. He could make things hard for you." "Let him try." Edward's smile was grim. "I've been running that store for 20 years. Blackwood needs me more than I need him. and I'm tired of watching good people get crushed by bad men with expensive suits." After they left, Eliza stood in the cold with Nate neither speaking, both lost in thought. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "Sorry you got dragged into this. Sorry your life got complicated because you stopped to help us." "My life was already complicated." Nate's voice was soft. "You just gave it meaning. There's a difference." "Nate." "Eliza, I need to tell you something." He turned to face her, and in the moonlight, his eyes were dark and serious. "When I stopped at your door that first day, I was planning to keep riding. Was planning to drift through Wyoming and end up somewhere north. Somewhere cold and empty, where I could disappear. I was tired, Eliza. Tired of carrying guilt. Tired of waking up every morning knowing I'd killed a man and destroyed his family. I wasn't looking for redemption. I was looking for oblivion." He took a breath. "Then I saw you in that street. Saw your children hungry and scared. Saw the whole town turn their backs while you begged. And something in me broke. Or maybe something in me healed. I don't know which. But I knew I couldn't keep running. Knew I had to stop. Had to try to do something right even if I'd done so much wrong." "You've done everything right." Eliza's voice was fierce. "Everything. My children are fed because of you. My ranch is still standing because of you. We're alive because of you. And now I've brought you more trouble. Jack Hollis, Victor Blackwood, all of it connected to me." "No." She grabbed his arms, forced him to look at her. "Blackwood was coming whether you were here or not. He's been circling this ranch since before Samuel died. And Jack Hollis. His anger is his own. You didn't create it. You just became the target. But neither of those things are your fault, Nate. Neither of them are reasons for you to leave." "Then what are the reasons to stay?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Because I'm falling in love with you, Eliza. And that scares me more than Hollis or Blackwood or anything else, because loving someone means you can lose them. Means you can fail them. And I don't know if I can survive failing again." The words hung between them raw and honest and terrifying. "Then we don't fail," Eliza heard herself say. "We fight. Together. And if we fall together. But Nate, I can't do this alone anymore. Can't pretend I don't need you. Can't pretend you're just hired help or temporary or anything except what you actually are." "And what's that?" "Essential." The word came out fierce. "You're essential, Nate Cross. To me, to my children, to this ranch and this life and everything we're trying to build. So stop trying to protect me from you and just stay. Really stay. Not for a month. Not until the work's done. Just stay." He kissed her then. Quick and almost desperate, his cold lips against hers, his hands cupping her face like she was something precious he'd almost lost. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "I'll stay," he said. "God help us both. I'll stay." They went inside together, hands joined, and found all three children awake and watching from the doorway. "About time," Clara said, trying to sound adult and failing through her grin. Benjamin just nodded, satisfied, and Grace launched herself at both of them, wrapping her small arms around both their legs and holding on like she'd never let go. "We're a family now," the 4-year-old announced. "A real family. Right." Eliza looked at Nate, saw her own hope and fear reflected in his eyes. "Right," she said. "A real family." The next week passed in tense preparation. Nate worked from dawn to dusk, fortifying the ranch like he was preparing for siege. He reinforced the barn doors, fixed the broken shutters on the cabin windows, even built a small storm cellar behind the house just in case. Marshall Stone stopped by twice, checking in, making his presence known. Edward and Ruth brought supplies more than Eliza could afford, refusing payment. Neighbors she barely knew suddenly started finding reasons to ride past, to wave, to stop and chat. The community was circling wagons, she realized, protecting their own against outside threats. But Victor Blackwood's men were circling too, Benjamin spotted them regularly, now riding the ridgelines, watching from a distance, never coming close enough to confront, just watching, waiting. And Jack Hollis was still out there somewhere, carrying his brother's ghost and planning revenge. It was Clara who saw them coming first. "Mama," she called from the window where she'd been keeping watch. "Riders, a lot of them." Eliza's heart seized. She moved to the window, saw 6 men on horseback approaching fast. Victor Blackwood was in front, his expensive coat pristine despite the mud. Behind him rode Marshal Stone, looking grim. And behind them, 4 men Eliza didn't recognize. Rough men. Armed men. "Benjamin, take your sisters to the storm cellar." Her voice came out calmer than she felt. "Now." "But Mama." "Now." She pushed him toward the door. "Don't come out until I say it's safe." Nate appeared from the barn, rifle in hand. He positioned himself between the cabin and the approaching riders, his body language calm but ready. The riders stopped 20 feet away. Blackwood dismounted, holding a paper. "Mrs. Hartwell," he called out, "I have a court order. You're required to vacate this property immediately pending trial. You have 1 hour to gather your belongings and leave." "This is my property." Eliza stepped out onto the porch, Nate beside her. "You have no right. I have every right." Blackwood smiled. "The territory has declared you in default of your mortgage. This ranch now belongs to the bank, which means it belongs to me." "The mortgage isn't in default." Nate's voice was hard. "Mrs. Hartwell has made every payment. I've seen the receipts." "Receipts can be forged." Blackwood's smile widened. "And the bank's records show otherwise. So unless you have proof, I have proof." Edward Chen rode up from the opposite direction, waving papers. "Original loan documents, payment records, all of it verified by the territorial office in Cheyenne. Mrs. Hartwell's mortgage is current Blackwood. This foreclosure is fraud." Blackwood's face darkened. "Those documents are forgeries." "No, yours are." Marshal Stone's voice carried authority. "I checked Blackwood. Sent a telegram to Cheyenne myself. Your bank records don't match the territorial files, which means someone's been cooking books, and I'm guessing that someone is you." "This is outrageous. Marshal, arrest these people for what?" Another rider approached. An older man with a silver badge. "For defending their property. For standing up to a corrupt banker. I'm Territorial Marshal William Hayes, Mr. Blackwood, and I've been investigating complaints about your business practices for 6 months now." Blackwood's confidence cracked. "I don't know what you think you've found. I've found evidence of fraud, falsified documents, intimidation, threats of violence." Marshal Hayes pulled out a thick folder. "I've got testimony from 12 different ranchers you've forced off their land. I've got bank records showing you inflating interest rates without authorization. And now I've got proof you tried to forge a foreclosure on Mrs. Hartwell's property." He nodded to his men. "Victor Blackwood, you're under arrest for fraud, corruption, and conspiracy to commit theft. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court." Eliza couldn't breathe, couldn't process what was happening. 1 minute she'd been facing eviction. The next her enemy was being led away in chains. "How?" she asked Edward. "How did you do this? Wasn't me." Edward smiled. "Was your man there?" He nodded at Nate. "He rode to Cheyenne 3 days ago. Didn't tell you because he didn't want to get your hopes up. But he presented everything to the territorial marshal. Your payment records, Blackwood's threats, all of it. The marshal was already investigating Blackwood for other complaints. Nate's evidence was the final piece." Eliza turned to Nate. "You went to Cheyenne. That's a 2-day ride. When did you—" "When you were at the store." He looked almost embarrassed. "Figured you had enough to worry about without adding my maybe-it-will-work plans. But I couldn't just sit here and watch Blackwood take your ranch. Had to do something." "You did more than something." Marshal Hayes approached, extending his hand. "Mr. Cross, your testimony was instrumental in bringing Blackwood down. The territory owes you thanks." "Don't want thanks." Nate shook his hand briefly. "Just want Mrs. Hartwell and her children to be safe." "They will be." The marshal's eyes were kind. Blackwood's properties will be liquidated to pay restitution to his victims. That should help a lot of folks get back on their feet, including you, ma'am. You'll receive compensation for the fraudulent interest he charged you." Eliza felt tears start. Relief, gratitude, overwhelming emotion she couldn't name. "Thank you. Thank you all." "Thank your man there." Edward clapped Nate on the shoulder. "He's the one who made this happen." After they left after the immediate crisis was over, Eliza just stood there shaking. Benjamin, Clara, and Grace emerged from the storm cellar, chattering excitedly. Neighbors who'd been watching from a distance rode over to celebrate. Someone broke out whiskey. Someone else started making plans for a barn raising to help the widows Blackwood had cheated. Through it all, Nate stood slightly apart, uncomfortable with the attention-deflecting praise. Eliza found him later behind the barn, checking on Willow. "You saved us," she said simply. "Again. Just did what needed doing." "No." She moved closer. "You did what no one else thought to do. You fought back. You took on a powerful man who'd been terrorizing this whole valley. And you won." "We won," he corrected gently. "Community won. Marshall Hayes won. Justice won. I just pointed them in the right direction. Don't diminish what you did." Her voice was fierce. "Don't pretend it doesn't matter. Because it matters, Nate. It matters more than you know." He finally looked at her. Really looked at her. "I was scared the whole time. Riding to Cheyenne, presenting evidence, hoping Hayes would listen. I kept thinking, what if I'm wrong? What if this makes things worse? What if I fail and Blackwood destroys her anyway?" "But you didn't fail. You succeeded." "This time." His voice dropped. "But what about next time? What about Jack Hollis? He's still out there, Eliza. Still planning. Still angry. And I can't ride to Cheyenne to fix that. Can't present evidence or call in marshals. That's just me and him and 4 years of grief. Then we'll face it together." She took his hands. "Whatever comes, whenever it comes. Together. You keep saying that word. Because I mean it." She pulled him close, rested her head against his chest, felt his arms come around her. "I love you, Nate Cross. And I know it's too soon. I know Samuel's barely cold. I know all the reasons this is wrong. But I don't care. I love you, and I'm not going to apologize for it." His arms tightened. "I love you too. God help me, I love you too." They stood there holding each other while the celebration continued in front of the cabin. And for the first time in months, Eliza let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they were going to be all right. But peace never lasted long in Wyoming territory, and their moment of triumph was shorter than either of them hoped. Jack Hollis came on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks after Blackwood's arrest, riding alone through fresh snow that had fallen overnight. Eliza was at Chen's store. Benjamin and Clara were in town picking up supplies. Only Grace was home playing with her doll by the fire while Nate repaired harness leather at the kitchen table. He heard the horse before he saw it. Rose slowly setting down his tools, moving to the window. One rider, familiar silhouette, the scarred face that had haunted his dreams for 4 years. Grace. Nate kept his voice calm. "I need you to go to the storm cellar. Right now. Don't ask questions. Just go." "But Mr. Cross." "Now, sweetheart, please." Something in his tone made the 4-year-old obey without argument. She grabbed her doll and ran her small feet pattering across the floor. Nate waited until he heard the cellar door close, then picked up his rifle and stepped outside. Jack Hollis dismounted slowly. He wasn't wearing a gun that Nate could see, but that didn't mean he wasn't armed. Men like Jack always had weapons. The question was whether he planned to use them. "Deputy Cross." Jack's voice was as cold as the wind. "Been looking for you." "Found me." Nate kept the rifle pointed down but ready. "What do you want, Jack?" "What I've always wanted. Justice for my brother." "Your brother pointed a gun at a child. I did what I was trained to do. With a gun that wasn't loaded. Jack took a step closer. With a desperate man who just wanted to feed his family. You didn't give him a chance, deputy. Didn't try to talk him down. Just pulled your trigger and ended him. I gave warning. I aimed for his shoulder. He moved. Nate's hands tightened on the rifle. I've replayed that day 1,000 times, Jack. Thought about what I could have done different. But the truth is, I made the best decision I could with the information I had, and I've been paying for it every day since. Not enough. Jack's voice went hard. Your guilt doesn't bring Daniel back. Doesn't feed his children. Doesn't undo what you did. No, it doesn't. Nate lowered the rifle completely, let it rest against the porch rail. So what do you want from me, Jack? You want me to die, to suffer, to lose everything, like Daniel lost everything. Tell me what would make this right, and I'll do it. But leave the woman and her children out of it. They didn't do anything except offer shelter to a broken man. Jack was quiet for a long moment, studying Nate with those hard eyes. You love her, the widow. I can see it on your face. Yes. No point in lying. I love her children. They gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. They gave me a reason to stop running. Then maybe that's the justice. Jack's hand moved to his belt. Nate tensed, ready to dive for the rifle. But Jack didn't pull a weapon. He pulled out a photograph, held it up so Nate could see. 3 children. Young, clean, smiling. Standing in front of a white building with a woman in a nun's habit. Daniel's kids, Jack said. Mary Joseph and little Daniel Jr. They're at St. Catherine's Home for Children in San Antonio. Been there 4 years now. The nuns take good care of them. Make sure they're fed, educated, safe. But they're still orphans, deputy. Still growing up without their father. Nate felt his throat close. I'm sorry. God, Jack, I'm so sorry. Your sorry doesn't help them. Jack put the photograph away. But maybe your money could. See, I've been thinking about what that little girl said. Clara. About revenge not fixing the hurt. About understanding being better than anger. And I think maybe she was right. He took a breath. I can't bring Daniel back. Can't change what happened. But I can make sure his children have a future. Can make sure they don't grow up in an orphanage forever. I'm trying to raise money to bring them home, to get a place where I can take care of them properly. But ranch work doesn't pay much, and it's going slow. How much do you need? Nate asked immediately. $500. That's what the nun said. $500 to cover their care until I can take them, plus money for a house furniture, everything 3 kids need. I don't have $500. Nate's mind raced. But I can get it. The territorial marshal, he offered reward money for my testimony against Blackwood. I told him I didn't want it, but he said it was mine by right. Bounty for bringing in a criminal. That should be close to $500, maybe more. Jack stared at him. You'd give me that money. After I threatened you, threatened people you love. If it means those children get a home, yes. Nate said it without hesitation. Jack, I can't undo what I did. Can't bring Daniel back. But if I can help his children, if I can give them something good out of something terrible, then that's what I'll do. It's not justice. It's not enough. But it's something. Jack's scarred face worked with emotion. Why would you do this? Because Clara was right. Because revenge doesn't fix anything. And because I've spent 4 years running from my guilt instead of trying to make something good from it. Nate took a step forward. Let me help you, Jack. Let me help Daniel's children. Not because it absolves me. Not because it makes what I did okay. But because it's the right thing to do. Because those kids deserve a chance. Jack pulled out the photograph again. Stared at it for a long moment. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. Daniel would have liked you, he said roughly. Would have said you were a good man in a bad situation. I was so angry I couldn't see that. Couldn't see anything except my need to hurt you back. But maybe... He stopped, started again. Maybe it's time I stopped being angry and started being the uncle those kids deserve. The uncle who brings them home instead of chasing ghosts. You're a good man, Jack Hollis. Nate extended his hand. Your brother was lucky to have you. Jack took the hand, shook it firmly. I'm sorry. For threatening your people. For making you live in fear. For all of it. I understand why you did it. Nate gripped his hand hard. And I don't blame you. But Jack, those children in that photograph, they need you more than Daniel's memory needs revenge. Don't let anger steal any more years from them. Or from you. I won't. Jack released his hand. I'll write to the nuns today. Tell them I'm coming. Tell them Uncle Jack is finally ready to bring them home. He mounted his horse, started to ride away, then turned back. Deputy, thank you for giving me a reason to let go of the hate. For helping me remember what matters. You did that yourself. Nate's voice was rough. I just gave you an excuse. After Jack left, Nate stood on the porch for a long time, letting the cold wind clear his head. Then he went to the storm cellar and opened the door. Grace was sitting on the bottom step, clutching her doll eyes wide. Is the bad man gone? He's gone. Nate picked her up, held her close. And he's not bad anymore, just hurt. But he's going to be okay now. We all are. Promise. Promise. When Eliza came home that afternoon, she found Nate teaching Grace to braid rope while they waited for Benjamin and Clara. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression made her stop. What happened? Jack Hollis came by. Her face went white. Are you hurt? Is Grace? We're fine. Better than fine. He told her everything. The conversation, the photograph, the agreement, the money that would bring 3 orphan children home to their uncle. Eliza sank into a chair. You gave him your reward money, all of it. Not yet, but I will. Soon as the marshal processes the paperwork. Nate kept braiding his hands steady. It's the right thing to do, Eliza. Those kids deserve a home, and I deserve to help give them one. What about us? Her voice was small. That money could have bought breeding stock, could have expanded the ranch, could have secured our future. Our future's already secured. He looked at her directly. We've got land. We've got each other. We've got community support and clean consciences. That's more wealth than most people ever see. Those children have nothing except an uncle who loves them and nuns who do their best. The money matters more to them than it does to us. Eliza was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Nate had ever seen. You're right. Of course you're right. And Samuel would have done the same thing. He always said money spent helping others was the best investment a man could make. Smart man, your Samuel. He was. She came to him, wrapped her arms around his waist, pressed her face against his chest. And so are you, Nate Cross. So are you. Grace looked between them. Does this mean Mr. Cross is staying forever? Eliza and Nate exchanged glances. Do you want me to stay forever? He asked the little girl. Yes, and I want you to marry Mama, and be our new Papa, because we love you, and you love us, and that's what families do. Grace. Eliza's face flushed. That's not... Actually, Nate interrupted. I think Grace might be onto something. He pulled away, gently reached into his pocket, drew out something small wrapped in cloth. I was going to wait. Make it proper. But if we're talking about forever... He unwrapped the cloth to reveal a ring. Simple silver with a small blue stone. It was my mother's. Only thing I kept from Missouri. Been carrying it for 4 years, waiting for the right moment. The right person. And Eliza, you're that person. You and your children. You're everything I've been looking for without knowing I was looking. He took her hand. I know it's too soon. I know Samuel's barely gone. I know all the reasons you should say no. But I'm asking anyway. Marry me, Eliza Hartwell. Let me be a father to your children and a husband to you. Let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve the second chance you've given me. Eliza stared at the ring, at his face, at Grace bouncing with barely contained excitement. Tears started, but they were good tears, happy tears. Yes. The word came out choked. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly like it had been made for her. Then he kissed her properly deeply while Grace cheered and clapped her hands. When Benjamin and Clara came home an hour later, they found the three of them planning a wedding. Finally, Clara's voice was smug. I was wondering how long it would take you two to figure it out. Benjamin just grinned and shook Nate's hand with solemn formality. Welcome to the family, Mr. Cross. Or should I call you Pa now? Nate's eyes went suspiciously bright. Pa works. If you're comfortable with it. I am. Benjamin's voice cracked. I really am. They married 2 weeks later at the church in town with half the territory in attendance. Ruth Chen stood up for Eliza. Marshall Stone stood up for Nate. Benjamin, Clara, and Grace sat in the front row, wearing new clothes Ruth had helped sew, beaming with pride. Reverend Walsh kept the ceremony short and sweet, talking about second chances and love that survives hardship and communities that support their own. When he pronounced them husband and wife, the church erupted in applause. The celebration afterward lasted until dark. Edward Chen brought food. The neighbors brought music. Someone set up tables outside the church, and suddenly there was dancing and laughter and joy that had been missing from Bitter Creek for too long. Victor Blackwood's arrest had freed something in the town. People who'd been living in fear, worrying about losing their land, suddenly remembered how to celebrate. How to be neighbors instead of just survivors. Eliza danced with Nate under the stars, while their children played with other children, and the community they'd fought so hard to keep embraced them both. Happy? Nate asked, holding her close. Terrified. She laughed. Happy and terrified all at once. Is that normal? I think that's marriage. He spun her gently. But Eliza, I promise you this. Whatever comes, whatever hardships we face them together. No more running. No more being alone. Just us. Just family. Just family. She repeated it like a vow. I like the sound of that. Spring came early that year, the snow melting faster than anyone expected. By March, the creek was running high and the grass was already starting to green. Nate used the last of his savings to buy 2 young mares and arranged to borrow a stallion from a rancher in the next valley. By summer, they'd have foals. By next year, they'd have stock to sell. Benjamin thrived under Nate's teaching, growing taller and more confident every day. Clara discovered she had a talent for numbers and started keeping the ranch accounts. Grace learned to ride on Old Willow fearless and laughing. And Eliza worked at Chen's store 3 days a week, bringing in steady money while building her reputation as someone reliable, someone capable, someone who'd survive the worst and come out stronger. One evening in late April, they sat on the porch together watching the sunset while the children played in the corral. Nate's arm was around Eliza's shoulders. Her head rested against his chest. Everything was quiet except for the children's laughter and the evening birds and the soft sound of wind through grass. I got a letter today, Nate said quietly, from Jack Hollis. Eliza tensed. And he got the children, brought them home to a little ranch he bought near San Antonio. Says they're adjusting well. Mary wants to learn to ride. Joseph's interested in carpentry. Little Daniel follows Jack everywhere like a shadow. That's wonderful. He sent something else, too. Nate pulled an envelope from his pocket. A check for $500. Says it's repayment for the loan. Says he can't accept charity when his pride's already paid such a high price. Are you going to cash it? No. Nate put the envelope away. I'm going to write him back and tell him to put that money toward his niece and nephews. Tell him their education and future matters more than settling debts. Tell him we're square, him and me. Finally, square after 4 long years. Eliza tilted her head up to look at him. You've changed, you know, since that first day. You were so closed off, so distant, like you were afraid to let anyone see the real you. I was afraid. He kissed her forehead, afraid of getting close to people, afraid of failing again, afraid of being happy because happiness felt like something I didn't deserve. He paused. You changed that. You and these children. You taught me that second chances are real, that redemption isn't about erasing the past, but about building a better future despite it. We taught each other. Eliza's voice was soft. I was drowning, Nate. Literally drowning. Another week, and I don't know what would have happened. But you threw me a rope, pulled me out, gave me reason to keep fighting. We saved each other then. He pulled her closer. Just like we'll keep saving each other. Every day, for the rest of our lives. Benjamin called out from the corral something about Grace trying to teach Willow to jump. Clara was laughing, telling them both they were crazy. And Grace's voice rose above it all, fearless and joyful and alive. Eliza thought about that day in the street. The rocks and the laughter and the absolute certainty that they were going to die. Thought about Nate's shadow falling across them and his rough voice saying words that changed everything. Get up, ma'am, you're done begging. And she had gotten up, had stopped begging, had fought and clawed and survived her way into something that looked remarkably like happiness. What are you thinking? Nate asked. I'm thinking about that first day, how close we came to losing everything. How one moment, one stranger, one act of kindness changed the entire trajectory of our lives. You believe in fate now. I believe in grace. She used the word deliberately. I believe in moments of grace that arrive exactly when we need them. You were my moment of grace, Nate Cross. My undeserved, unexpected, precious moment of grace. And you were mine. He kissed her properly deeply while the sun set fire to the horizon, and their children played, and the ranch that had almost been lost stood solid and secure around them. 10 years later, Benjamin would be a deputy marshal, like Nate had been, but wiser and more patient, learning from his adopted father's mistakes. Clara would marry the banker's son and bring modern accounting practices to the whole valley's ranches. Grace would become the best horse trainer in 3 territories, with clients coming from as far as Denver to work with her. And Eliza and Nate would add 3 more children to their family, a boy named Samuel, who had his father's eyes, and twin girls, who kept everyone running and laughing, and grateful for the chaos that came with love. But that was all in the future, unknown and unpromised. Tonight, this moment was enough. Was everything. They sat together on their porch, watching their children play, and Eliza remembered the promise Nate had made that first night when he'd given them food and hope and reasons to believe tomorrow might be better. Then you'll eat beside me from now on. And they had. Every single day. Through hardship and triumph, through fear and joy, through every challenge life threw at them, they had eaten beside each other, had stood beside each other, had loved beside each other. That was the promise that mattered. Not the grand gestures or the dramatic rescues, but the daily choice to show up, to stay, to keep choosing each other even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. I love you, Eliza said suddenly fiercely. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. I love you too. Nate's voice was steady, certain. And Eliza, you don't have to be scared anymore. I'm not going anywhere, not ever. This is where I belong. With you. With them. This is home. Home. The word settled over them both like a blessing. They'd started with nothing but hunger and desperation, and a stranger's unexpected mercy. They'd built something real from that foundation. Something that would last beyond them, beyond their children, maybe beyond memory itself. They'd built family. They'd built love. They'd built home. And that was everything. That was enough. That was more than either of them had dared hope for when Nate Cross knocked on Eliza Hartwell's door and asked for water on a frozen Wyoming morning. The sun finished setting. The children came inside for supper. The family gathered around the table that was finally big enough, passing food and sharing stories and filling the cabin with warmth and laughter and the particular kind of magic that happens when broken people find each other and decide to be whole together. And if you listened carefully underneath all the noise and joy, you could hear an echo of that first moment when everything changed. When a desperate woman begged and a drifter said the words that would save them both. Then you'll never eat alone again. She never did.